Hello friends, today we are going to start with class 11 chapter 1, the living world. So this chapter is going to be according to your Ncert textbook and it is going to be very crisp and short. So let's get started. Now you all have come across a question, what is living? Okay, so there are certain features that makes us understand that a living organism is said to be living by all these features. Okay, these are the basic characteristics. By seeing these, we can say that an organism is said to be living or non-living. They are growth, reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization, and consciousness. Growth and reproduction are said to be characteristic features, and metabolism, cellular organization, consciousness is called as the defining feature. Now, why is it said so? We'll see one by one. First, let's begin with growth. It is the increase in the number and mass of the cells. As you all know that whenever an organism is growing, there is increase in the number and the mass of the cells. Now, how is it done? With the help of cell division. So, any multicellular organism, whether it is unicellular or multicellular organism, divides with the help of cell division, and this helps in the growth of its number. Okay. So, in plants, growth continues throughout their lifespan. So, you can see that from small plant to a big tree, it goes on growing. But in case of animals, growth is only up to a certain age. Okay. So, in animals, the growth is limited up to a certain age. Now, here they have given you a point in your page number 4 from the Ncert textbook that in majority of higher animals and plants, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive events. Now, what does this point mean? Alright. In unicellular organisms, suppose let me consider amoeba. When amoeba divides, it leads to the formation of two daughter cells. And what is this process called as? It is a type of asexual reproduction, right? It is called as reproduction. Okay. Now, according to our definition of growth, it is the increase in number and mass of the cells. Now, here you can see that amoeba is dividing to form two more cells, which is increase in number of the cells. So, according to our definition, this becomes growth as well, right? So, in case of unicellular organisms, the growth and the process of reproduction are coexisting. They are inclusive. Okay? That is, they coexist with each other. They are very similar to each other. Whenever a cell divides into two, we call it as growth as well as reproduction in case of unicellular organisms. Alright? But in case of higher animals and plants, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive. What does this word exclusive mean? It means independent. Alright? It is independent. How is it independent? Whenever a male and a female gamete fuse together, they leads to the formation of a zygote. Right? You have studied it. Now this zygote divides to form an embryo. Okay? This embryo further divides into a fetus. And this fetus further divides to form a human child. Now this process, if you see carefully, the formation of the gametes, alright, the formation of the gametes is a process called as meiosis. And the formation of zygote to an embryo, embryo to a fetus, fetus to a human child is a process called as mitosis, right? So meiosis takes place in certain cells called as the germ cells, that is the sperm and the ova. whereas the mitosis leads to the, mitosis takes place in the cells called as the body cells, right? So here you can see that these two processes are exclusively, they are different from each other. Okay, they are independent of each other. So this point is very important with respect to your exam point of view. Okay, so make a note of it. All right, moving on to the next point. There is a picture of a mountain, and you all know that a mountain is built with the help of some dust, mud particles. All right. So does this mean that it is a growth? Does it show any characteristics of growth such as living organisms? No. Here it is mere accumulation of dust particles from the outer part. So here growth is extrinsic, that is, which is taking place from the outer part. But in a living organism, in living organisms, growth is said to be intrinsic. That is, it takes place from the inside. Okay, because of the accumulation of cells, because of the increase in the number of cells. So growth in living organisms is intrinsic. So here you can see that growth is not a defining feature. All right. It is just a characteristic feature. Okay. Moving forward to reproduction. So you know that reproduction is the production of progenies having features which are similar, okay, which are similar to that of the parents. All right. Now in reproduction you have studied about the asexual method of reproduction and the sexual method of reproduction. So in sexual method of reproduction, progenies have the features which are more or less similar to those of the parents. But in case of asexual reproduction, you have studied about fungi reproduces by spores, yeast reproduces by budding, planaria reproduces by regeneration. Okay. So, reproduction, as you saw in unicellular organisms, okay, that reproduction and growth are synonyms, right? They are synonym to each other. Why do we say that? Because they coexist with each other. But in many organisms, there is no reproduction. They do not reproduce. For example, mules, okay, worker bees, infertile human beings, okay, so infertile human couples, they all don't reproduce. Hence, reproduction is not a perfect defining property of living organisms. All right. Moving forward to the first defining property of living organisms, that is metabolism. Now, what is metabolism? Metabolism is the sum total of all the biochemical reactions taking place inside a living system. Now, what are the different biochemical reactions taking place inside living organisms? It could be photosynthesis, right? It could be respiration. It could be digestion. So, all these are metabolic activities, which means metabolic means, in simple words, whether a new product is formed or whether the compounds are broken down. Either it is addition of many substances to form one single product, or breaking of one product into many simple substances. Is that clear? All right. Now, in non-living objects, they do not exhibit metabolism. There is no metabolism in non-living objects. So, living objects, living organisms are the only ones who show this metabolism. So, it is a defining feature. Okay. All right. Living organisms are made up of cells. Cells are the structural and functional unit of life. This you all have studied. So, without cells, a living organism cannot perform any of the functions, right? So this becomes the defining property or defining feature of living organisms, as non-living things do not have cells. But if it is a living organism, it definitely has to have a cell, okay? Or at least it should be made up of cells, right? Consciousness. What do you mean by consciousness? Being aware of the surroundings or capable of responding to the external stimuli. Now you all know that whenever you touch a hot object, right? Whenever you touch a hot object, you tend to take off your hand. Now what is the reason? Because you know that you're going to get hurt. So you respond to the external stimuli. Similarly, amoeba, okay, a unicellular organism, amoeba, identifies food particles or senses the food particles, and then it releases or it engulfs the food particle with the help of the pseudopodia, right? So this is also a response to the stimuli. Okay. Now, photoperiod. What is photoperiod? Photoperiod affects reproduction in seasonal breeders, both plants and animals. So you all know what is photoperiod. Photoperiod is the period of light. Okay. So photoperiod is the period of light. Now, certain organisms reproduces, okay, certain organisms reproduces only in a particular season of that particular year, okay. So they reproduce only in that particular season of the year, and that's why they are called as seasonal breeders. For example, dogs. And plants, some plants are called as the short light or short period plants and long period plants, okay. So they depend solely on the light for the reproduction. So whether it is a unicellular organism or a multicellular organism, consciousness, that is responding to the external stimuli is also called as cues, environmental cues. We use the word cues, which means external actions, okay. So actions which we receive from the environment are called as cues. So we respond, whether it is unicellular or a multicellular organism, all the organisms, living organisms, they respond to the stimuli, okay. So this becomes one of the defining characteristics or defining features. Consciousness is also a defining feature, okay. Alright, moving forward. So there is a point in Ncert which says that human beings is the only organism who is aware of himself, that is has self-consciousness. So human beings are the only organisms who are aware whatever is happening around them, okay. So that's what the sentence means. Now, there is a question that is given in your Ncert textbook which says, we observe patients lying in coma in hospitals virtually supported by machines which replace heart and the lungs. The patient is otherwise brain dead. The patient has no self-consciousness. Are such patients who never come back to normal life living or non-living? Okay, so there is no self-consciousness, but the person is virtually supported by machines which replaces heart and lungs. So here we need to understand that although the person does not have any self-consciousness, is not there, but still the person is on medicines, right? The person is on medicines, so which means that metabolism is taking place in that person, alright? Metabolism is continuously taking place, and also the person's body definitely has cellular organization, right? So the person's body definitely has cellular organization, okay? So these 2 points tell us that the person is very much living, okay? We don't consider that person to be non-living, he is still living. All right? Okay. Moving forward. In higher classes, you will come to know that all the living phenomena are due to underlying interactions. Okay. So, due to some interactions, due to the interactions of many cells or many organelles in the cells, a cell is able to function. That's what it means. Okay. So, if you consider the cells of the stomach, okay, suppose you consider stomach. So, stomach, you all know that is involved in the process of digestion, right? So, can a single cell perform all the functions of the digestion? Does it perform so? No, right? So, if you take a cell, alright, if you take a cell, you have so many cell organelles, right? You have nucleus, you have endoplasmic reticulum, you have the chloroplast in plant cell, you have mitochondria. Now, if I take out all the cell organelles outside the cellular organization, outside the cell body, these cell organelles may not function independently, okay? But when they are placed together, the interactions of these cell organelles lead to a proper functioning, okay? So, we can say that living organisms, alright, living organisms are self-replicating, evolving, self-regulating, interactive systems capable of responding to external stimuli. This is a definition, very important. You need to memorize it. Try to understand it. It's very easy. The living organisms are self-replicating, which means they are capable of reproducing, right? Okay. Evolving, which means that the process of variation leads to the evolution. Variation means different set of characters which is accumulated leads to the evolution. Self-regulating. Self-regulating interactive means metabolism, right? All right. Capable of responding to external stimuli. It means they are talking about the consciousness. Okay. So here we see that living organisms are self-replicating, evolving, self-regulating, interactive systems capable of responding to external stimuli. So I hope you have understood the video thoroughly. If you have any doubts, do post it in the comment box. Like the video and subscribe to my channel. And as I always say, stay positive, stay motivated. Thank you.